Good morning. Thank you for coming to How to Stay on Budget and Innovate. My name is Mike Sheldon. I'm the CEO of Curvature. I'm going to try to avoid saying too much about our company specifically until the end, because what I really want to talk about is something Gartner calls Bimodal IT, but it's really quite simple. It's the idea that we live in a very complex world, and those of you in this room are, I think, keenly aware of the need to cut costs while everybody in your IT departments are screaming about all the things they've got to invest in. And Curvature, among other companies, I think has a pretty simple and relatively direct way to address those concerns. Gartner has been talking about this for a long time. Mark Fabi and Eric Goodness and Christine Tennyson have written numerous papers, among others. Assuming you're a Gartner member since you're at this show, any of them are available through Gartner, and I'd be happy to share the names of the papers with you at the end. But the idea is really simple. Bimodal IT is essentially the idea that you should bifurcate your infrastructure and treat different pieces of your infrastructure differently. Anybody know the mean time between failure of a common Cisco switch, which Cisco says has a life of about 5 years? 33.4 is Cisco's own published mean time between failure. Even spinning hard drives, which are notoriously the most commonly failed unit in the data center, live on average 9 years. Dividing up your infrastructure is basically the 80-20 rule put into practice, and some of these Gartner papers talk about it explicitly. 80% of your infrastructure lasts a lot longer than you're being told, is perfectly adequate for the business use and the business function that it's performing, and you could really focus your attention on roughly 20% and get 90+% of the gains of focusing on everything. I'm sure some of you are familiar with Peak Web. This story's been in the Wall Street Journal recently. Peak Web was one of the best and strongest hosting companies in the country. They hosted a number of social dating and online game apps, some of the biggest users of bandwidth in the world. In 2015, in April, they signed a $48 million annual contract to host Game of War. And thinking they really needed to go all out, they bought $35 million of brand new, recently released Cisco Catalyst 3000, Nexus 3000 switches, and in 6 months were in Chapter 11 bankruptcy because the switches just didn't work well. They had been released the previous month. Had they stuck with the existing infrastructure that they were already using for 24 other clients, it would have cost them $6 million, not 35, and they'd be wealthy and still in business. They're also now in litigation with both their customer and Cisco, which is a hard way to make a living. So the 80-20 rule and keeping what works, which is, I think, the simplest way of saying it, is not just about money, it's about risk. Every time you replace a piece of equipment, you have costs, downtime, project management, and risks associated with moving configs and the like that are not quantifiable in dollar terms ahead of time, but only bite you at the end. So what I want to do for the next few minutes anyway is look at a very specific example of a medium to large enterprise and look at the different parts of their network and specifically talk about how you would implement, how you would address this strategy with that infrastructure. So there are generally 3 parts. You could break up your network into 3 parts: the access layer, the edge, and the data center. Essentially, what Bimodal IT would suggest is on the access layer today, switches are bulletproof. Long ago, many years ago, you likely have gigabit to the desktop. Gigabit to the desktop can stream 4K video. We don't have 4K video yet, and I don't think anybody's using it. And similarly with your switches, but wireless is evolving rapidly every 12 to 18 months. It's still following Moore's law. So we would suggest focusing your dollars primarily on wireless while leaving your switches that connect to all your mobile phones and PCs and laptops and the like alone for much longer than typically recommended. On the edge, you've got your firewalls, your switches, and routers that connect to the internet. Here, focus on the firewall. Security is obviously the #1 concern, I think, in any organization, where the routers and workgroup switches long ago achieved maturity and can handle most of what you need. And then in the data center, it's actually a different set of equipment that you should be focused on. Switching, connecting all your storage devices and servers has seen remarkable progress from 10 gig to 40 gig to 100 gig, while the servers and storage devices, with some exceptions with SSD drives, are largely fit for function for the applications you're running. But I want to bring this down even another level to a specific set of equipment and talk about what would happen over a 10-year period. I wish I could predict the future, but I have no idea what 2026 is going to look like. Between software-defined everything and virtualization and cloud and mobile and everything else, I think we would be kidding ourselves if we said, I know exactly what, or even approximately what the world will look like in 2026. But what we do know is what happened since 2006. So we're going to go back to 2006 and take a look at a representative company with 5,000 employees, a number of locations, a wide variety of infrastructure. How many of you sold your homes and all your stocks in 2006? I bought my house in 2006. Nobody can predict the future. But if we go back to 2006 and we look at the data center, the access, the edge, this company could be any of you, could be anyone. It could be a retail chain, it could be a university, a municipality, a pharmaceutical company. Anyone with a large distributed network, a large number of employees, this could represent. We're going to focus on the access and edge because it's the most typical areas of the network that people would implement this strategy first. People tend to implement it in the core later, thinking that the core is somehow riskier. So we're going to focus just on the access layer and the edge and look over a 10-year period at what you could have done. 2006, times are booming. Everyone's buying their houses. Smart. A number of things were happening at that time that I think had a very unpredictable effect on the world, one of which was the implementation of 64-bit CPUs. And that may not sound much. They used to be 32, now they're 64. 32-bit CPUs could handle 4 gigabit of DRAM. 64-bit CPUs could theoretically handle 18 exabytes. What does that mean? That means VMware finally works. That means a whole bunch of technologies that enabled the cloud and everything else to explode. By the way, that's 4.5 billion times more memory. So it's not just twice as fast. You had the implementation of voice over IP. You had 10 gigabit becoming widely available at much lower cost. All of these things were happening, and the OEMs were telling you that your existing infrastructure, probably the most common switch Cisco ever sold, 3750G, the part numbers really aren't that important, but they're representative of what was happening at the time. Upgrade those to our new 3750Xs for modest incremental improvements. Upgrade your VoIP. There's new stuff out. Certainly implement 64-bit CPUs and pervasively implement 10 gig to increase throughput. Well, the alternative is really keep what works. The switches are fine. The voice over IP is fine. Upgrade the software. Your hardware's fine. Definitely take advantage of 64-bit CPUs and very sporadically implement 10 gig as the price comes down. Well, this is what your infrastructure looks like under each strategy. And I know it's probably too small to see. You can look at it after. The hardware being used in each example is not identical, but it is extremely close in performance. And the difference between ongoing maintenance costs and initial OpEx is staggering. And this is just a single point in time. The upgrades that the OEM was recommending in 2006 cost you $2.3 million. The alternative is under $1 million, about 60% less. As we walk through the decade, obviously a number of things happened. The economy blew up, the housing market crashed, solid-state storage was introduced, Metro Ethernet really replaced T1, which had been the standard before that. And the recommendations, again, are very different. The OEM says, switch everything to Ethernet, continue to make 10 gig pervasive, upgrade basically everything in your data center. Solid-state storage offers real advantages. Again, the alternative is to be more selective. The difference, an incredible amount of money spent. Our IT guys, our CCIEs that run our maintenance division, suggest that this money bought this company about 3% in incremental improvement. 3%. This doesn't include, by the way, all of the project management, downtime, field labor, installation costs that it would take to do these upgrades. By 2011, the contagion had hit Europe. 100 gig is out. Everything's as a service. Everybody's talking about cloud and wireless. Wireless has been the big evolution, certainly, since 2010. Everything's now wireless. It's interesting to note that in 2006, less than 10% of organizations had a pervasive wireless network. Now it's 100%, or virtually 100%. Upgrade everything versus upgrade only those devices that are going to give you real noticeable improvements, a staggering amount of money. What does this look like today? Well, again, I'm happy to share this with your IT folks. Both paths have you with state-of-the-art switching, state-of-the-art wireless, excellent 10 gigabit core switching, only the cost was 10 million versus 3. And as I said, it's not just about the savings. The downtime, the labor, and the risk of trying to replicate configurations on new equipment is where most IT projects go awry. It's not that the technology itself was misspecified. It's that new stuff doesn't always work. You're not familiar with it. It takes time to translate older to newer software. So as we look into the future, what is the next 10 years going to hold? If I knew, I'd be running a hedge fund. I think I said that this morning. I'm not sure what the next year is going to hold. I'm not sure what the election's going to hold, much less anything else. So what's going to happen in the next 10 years? Well, in the last 10, we've seen fast Ethernet go to 10 gig and 100 gig. You've seen wireless go from non-existent to everywhere. You've seen security go from, if not an afterthought, something people bought because they thought they needed to absolutely mission critical and enterprise threatening. The need for nimbleness in a software-defined everything type world has never been greater. So fundamentally, what we're suggesting is argue for stability. Make innovation justify itself with true game-changing performance. Why aren't you hearing about this? How many manufacturers are in love with this strategy? It's interesting that most large manufacturers still make most of their money from selling cardboard boxes. If you're not buying more cardboard, they're not making any money. The cardboard leads to maintenance. The maintenance leads to professional services. The professional services leads to software audits, and on and on and on and on and on. The more you stick with what works and focus on what changes the game, or reinvest the savings in innovation. There are plenty of things your business can probably use 60% of its IT infrastructure budget for that's got nothing to do with IT. Fundamentally, that's what Curvature does. Curvature is the largest third-party maintenance and secondary market hardware vendor in the world. Think of it this way. You know Jerry Maguire, You Complete Me? We are the other puzzle piece to your traditional VAR. There are plenty of people that can sell you new Dell at 3-point margin. We actually sell Dell. I'm happy to sell it to you too. But 40,000 other people can. If you need to buy new equipment, there are plenty of firms that can help you spec out state-of-the-art, absolutely wonderful configurations. Very few companies can help you buy more of what you already have, can help you maintain what you have for dramatically less. And most, I think, dramatically shift CapEx from an annual or every few years type event to an every 5 or 7 or 10 year type event. Curvature has, first of all, we're very large, 300 million in revenue, 600 plus employees. We have over 120 engineers. We have a relentless focus on quality. We're ISO and TL 9000 certified, ISO 14001, CTPAT, a number of other securities, R2. Our equipment fails less often used, refurbished, than new equipment does. There are a lot of reasons for that. The bathtub curve, burn-in. But the fact is that we have a lifetime failure rate of under 0.5%. New equipment's about 2.5 over its life. We're global. This is not only where we are, but where we can support customers. Every single one of those dots is where we can have equipment in a depot within 4 hours of your location. We have carpeted the major areas of North America, Western Europe, and Japan, and rapidly expanding everywhere else. This is just a bit of the complete offering. Not only is it hardware from most major manufacturers, Cisco, HP, Dell, IBM, and others. It's maintenance on all of the above. Our maintenance has no end-of-life date. It is a fraction of the cost of new. It's global multi-vendor on one contract, so you don't have a different contract for every country and different device type. It's incredibly flexible. You have monthly add drops, quarterly billing, whatever basically works for you, we can work out. And we have a complete suite of services, so if you do need installation, deinstallation, design, configuration, we can help you with that virtually anywhere in the world in 17 languages. I think it's probably best to talk about some more real-world examples of people actually using this strategy. This is a global pharmaceutical company, made a number of acquisitions. They came to us trying to make sense of these various environments they had. We're supporting about 50% of their network infrastructure and a year-one savings of almost $1.2 million, allowing them to save $4.5 million over 3 years, but defer almost $30 million of CapEx, which is what they were facing to replace the infrastructure of the acquired company, which was no longer maintainable through the OEM. This is a great example. US retail chain with stores in Canada and the US. They had just completed a $28 million project in the US, upgrading all 4,000 stores, $7,000 per store. They came to us because they were looking to upgrade their Canadian stores, another 1,000 stores. The equipment they had just bought 2 years before, it took them 2 years to do the upgrade, was no longer available. So of course they were being pitched even better equipment, a little more expensive, but so much better. Well, they were planning on using the $28 million of equipment that they had just bought for at least 5 years, and maybe more, and the OEM was already telling us that that equipment was obsolete. Was telling them that it was time to buy better equipment for their Canadian stores. We did the project for $2,500 per store, and not only that, cut the maintenance on all 5,000 stores from $600 a year to $250, saving them almost $10 million over 3 years. And this is a company that operates on 1.5% margins. $10 million was a lot, even though they're fairly large. Finally, a fairly simple example. You don't have to be a giant multinational corporation to take advantage of this. A city in California gave us about half their infrastructure, cut their maintenance bill from $500,000 to $125,000, and deferred millions of dollars of CapEx. Netzer is the name of the maintenance product. As I said, it's got no end-of-life dates. It covers virtually everything Cisco, HP, and Dell, among others, have ever made. And it's delivered via a number of proprietary tools. One of the objections we commonly get is, if I implement this strategy, how do I know who's maintaining what? How do I know who I bought it from? Asset management is not my strength. Well, we've got a number of tools, including an asset management portal that we give for free to all of our customers. It's not you don't pay for it. That allows you to not only do asset management, adds and drops online, but also planning, where we can help you plan for implementations in the future, aligning pro services with those plans. We also offer a concierge service where every one of our Netzer customers can call us as a one-stop shop, and then we'll keep track of and connect you to the appropriate maintenance partner, whether that be 10 different OEMs or us or even another third party. We get a lot of customer feedback. We ask customers for feedback relentlessly every time we do a deal. Fundamentally, what you get with a small company, and you certainly get with Curvature, is a focus on the customer and customer service that's unlike, I think, anything you'd be used to from the OEM. We are here at the show, and I wanted to leave some time because every time we give this talk, there are a lot of questions. So we have a fair amount of time for question and answers. We're at booth 202. We'd love to talk to you. Thank you very much.